Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Trucking Tower podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Nick Salas, the Chief Operating Officer at Fleet Drive 360. Nick, so glad to see you today. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Eva. It's been a little while since we've talked. It's nice to be back on the show and to chat with you again.
Awesome. So today I'm excited about the topic we're going to cover. We're going to talk about overcoming struggles with driver turnover. And I'm sure you're aware that supply chain companies today are really dealing with higher than ever driver turnover. And that's become a pretty big issue in terms of finding and retaining top talent.
Yeah, so finding talent, retaining talent, two major topics that we could unpack hours about each of them and two separate pieces of the puzzle, right? Um, and I've been to some of the trade shows recently, the TMC shows, the Florida trucking shows. We're getting ready to go to the match show up in Kentucky. And it's a big topic that people are talking about, both drivers saying, how do I find the right company to be with? And right company means a lot more than just pay. And then companies struggling with, how do I deal with this? I've got an idle asset. I've got, product that needs to be delivered, but no one to drive the truck. Or how long is it taking me to get someone in that truck? So yeah, I think it's a problem that a lot of people are facing. I think it's a cross-industry issue, but nothing happens in this world unless a truck moves it from one place to the next. So it ripples throughout our economy.
Wow, yeah, it's a big issue. And I've spent a lot of years in HR consulting, performance management, talent management, organizational design. And, this compliance is one of the biggest, it's really more of an asset to the company, but it's really something that's really, really important. And I know it's not the most jazzy thing to talk about in business, but it really is something that is secures the business and promotes the health of the business. So I'm excited to hear what you're going to share with us today.
Yeah, and
But before we go ahead.
Just kind of at the end of our last conversation, we talked about compliance in general. We say it's not sexy, and it won't help you grow your business from a compliance standpoint. But the risks of being out of compliance, it can cost you your business.
Right.
It can shut you down. There's costly fines. When you and I were kicking around, discussion points for this, there was an article we read about a Houston carrier that ignored the compliance requirements, and there's millions in fines, shut down two businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a significant issue. The impact to business as a whole for not only being out of compliance, but not having, the way they say at the trade shows, it's butts in seats. It's significant, and it's also tough on the drivers. I don't just look at this from a business standpoint, but we all want to feel valued. We all want to feel that we're getting paid a fair wage for the work that we're doing. You don't even have to turn on the TV to see the impact of like inflation and rising costs. And my bag of potato chips, yeah, the bag's the same size, but I'm buying a lot more air than I used to. There's
right.
not as many chips inside of that. And then companies, I've worked in finance positions, and when we look at cost of goods, we look at cost of, let's say, fuel, we look at, employee needs. It can be difficult, and we're all faced with tough choices. And I think all of these things play into this issue that we're talking about today of driver turnover and finding and retaining the right drivers.
Right. The last time you were with us on the show, you mentioned that you've spent about 15 years or more in the logistics industry, which really opened your eyes to see that need for proactively solving driver problems. And that's really, I think that's how Fleet Drive 360 came to be, correct?
Yes, it is. And that's what enamored me with the opportunity. So I had a situation, and it cost me millions of dollars in business. Ultimately, it cost me some significant, fines as far as not being able to deliver for a major big box retailer, where our provider, our carrier, couldn't get trucks to us to deliver to that big box retailer, and they didn't care. It wasn't their problem. The product wasn't on the shelf when it was supposed to be. So I've been in a past life directly impacted from this. Now, as far as our company and the solution we have, two of my owners owned multiple carriers, both OTR and last mile. I had about roughly 100 power units at the largest time. And they were forced to deal with multiple compliance providers to get all their compliance needs figured out. Now, one of our owners, Om Prakash Karamchandani, we call him Om, he's got a programming background. And he sat down and said to his other partner, DeMarco, look, we can do this better. I have a programming background. I can build this. And that's where kind of the birth of Fleet Drive was. is kind of how we started to look at the problem in a grassroots solution. And, not to get preachy about it, and my CEO, Kevin Thompson, gives me a hard time about it all the time. But Plato said it, right? Our need will be the real creator. They had a need for themselves. They used their skills to start solving the problem. And as they showed it to other people, they said, well, I want that. Like, how do we get that? And then that's where Kevin came in, and DeMarco and Omen put their time together to start building Fleet Drive, as a solution for all of the compliance needs.
Well, that's kind of how we've also worked at Trekking Tower, is, found a way to work through some things a few years ago, and it worked for us. And now we share it out as well from a need. So that's amazing. So what are the trends you're seeing right now in hiring and retaining skilled drivers?
So I don't think anyone will question this. I mean, driver turnover is at an all-time high. Just a couple of numbers that we've seen, and it's not just turnover moving to other companies, but the great resignation, that fun term that we like to hear about on the news. It's also hitting the transportation sector. The numbers that I'm looking at, just above 75% driver turnover for large and small carriers, and a little above 25% for private carriers. I mean, imagine in any business, whether you're a carrier or not, if you're replacing just 25% of your employees on the low end year over year, what that does to your business. And we'll talk more about this later, but it's lost revenue. It's lost opportunities with your clients. It may be a lost client because they can't depend on you. Idle assets are expensive, and that's not even taking into account the process of finding, hiring, onboarding, trading or training, and bringing a new person into your culture. I mean, it's a really expensive problem.
Right, and stressful too. Constantly, it's almost like the Groundhog Day, going over and over with new people, and trying to get forward, two steps back, one step forward. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and those are the numbers. But then let's talk over on the driver's side. Not just looking at the numbers of turnover, we've got a significant increase in cost of living. And increased pay is the number one reason that drivers are leaving a carrier and moving to another. And it's sometimes even for just a really small, in cost per mile increase or pay per mile increase. It's not just pay; a lot of it's benefits, and it's not only financial benefits in healthcare. There's other non-tangible things that folks are looking for. And we do see smart companies that are attacking this problem are increasing their pay at or above the inflation rate. They've noticed it. They've seen the impact on their bottom line, and the good companies are investing in their people and starting to turn this around. And the last piece that we talked about, there's increased business costs across the board. It's everything from the cost of a widget to the pricing pressure from consumers who are feeling the pinch as well, the increase in fuel that we really don't like talking about, but it's a nightmare, and even part shortages. You can't afford to have a truck sitting still, but if you can't get a part, well, that means I've got to find one on the secondary market, or I'm going to pay extra for it. So it's pretty intense, and it goes into every aspect of our business.
Wow. So what would you say are a few of the key truck driver challenges that companies are facing right now?
There's two real ones that we want to talk about, and you and I talked about this at the very beginning of this show: finding qualified candidates and retaining good employees. So as far as finding qualified candidates, the hiring process, it's a snapshot in time. I talked to a recruiter, I put a post on a message board, I talked to my friend John that might know a guy named Mike, but it's only at that moment is that person available. They might not be available tomorrow, or I may make a hiring decision, and that guy that I really wanted, that perfect candidate, he didn't come out into the market until a day later. So we often miss the opportunity for real quality people. Flipping the coin over is retaining your good employees, the quality employees. Well, as we have this cost focused mindset, as we look at people as cogs in the machine, and one of the things I hate, we look at, and it's in every financial statement, every publicly traded company, we have a fiduciary responsibility to increase shareholder value. It's not taking the person into account. It's not looking at the value that a person brings to a company or to a culture outside of just a line on a P&L. It's a profit above all mindset, and I think it's pretty negative, and it's hurting us across the board. The last piece of that, as far as retaining quality employees, Other companies are actively chasing your drivers at every opportunity. They're paying people a lot of money to steal your employees. And I think that's something we have to guard against.
Right. That's an excellent point, and I'm really glad you brought that out, and kind of shed some light on that. So, what would you say? What would you recommend as some ways to have success in this challenge and overcoming this challenge?
So this doesn't have anything to do with just trucking, and it kind of goes to our company philosophy and a lot of people that I believe in and read and follow from a business standpoint. But you invest in your people, you put them first. From a driving standpoint, hire driver coaches, teach your guys how to be better drivers, teach them how to deal with the challenges they face on the road. Give them opportunities to talk to people about the challenges that it puts on their family back at home. Invest in the families of your drivers that are out driving. Keep your equipment in top shape. An asset that's down is not generating revenue. The problems that people deal with because you cut corners in maintenance and repair can create other issues, both driver related that get frustrated and just want to go, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Or just, hey, I'm broken down on the side of the road. I'd say look at strong incentive plans, above market pay, and then also non-financial incentives, vacation and time off. Again, back to things for the families, providing daycare services, better health care plans, things that will help keep someone happy. And then they're going to make the best decision for your business that includes them rather than just making the best decision for their personal life. They'll take ownership in the growth of your company and your culture.
Absolutely.
Tied to that is top grading your team. Always be hiring. Always be looking for good people and good talent, not just when you need them, and try to hire in advance. You should have, just like in sales, they talk about your sales funnel. You should have a hiring funnel, a good funnel of good people, and always take advantage of an opportunity to improve quality. Okay, what's a good analogy? So do you think the Super Bowl champions aren't looking for better receivers or better safeties or better defensive linemen? They're always trying to improve at every position, and businesses should take follow that lead. The last point, and is one that's important to me, is build a culture of accountability, not a culture of blame. When issues arise, when problems happen, you want to identify a root cause of a problem. You want to focus on fixing the problem, not pointing fingers. And what you're going to create that in that culture of accountability is when someone makes a mistake or sees a potential mistake coming down the line, they're going to raise their hand because it's in the best interest of the business. It's in the best interest of those around them. And they're going to actively work to coach each other, build each other up, and try to improve the business as a whole. And what you'll see very shortly thereafter is your gross profits, your net profits, those financial leading indicators are going to start climbing because people care. It's not just a job, it's a culture. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox a little bit. It's something I believe pretty strongly in.
I'm 100% on board. It's a total partnership. It's an internal partnership. That's why there's no I in team. It's a team environment, and you get the best out of your employees when you're considering them and considering what they really need and what they really want. Excellent points here.
Well, and I mean, the why of all of this is, let's go back to the financial, right? Because, I am running a business and I do have to pay attention to the P&L. Replacing lost employees, it's expensive. And it's not just the idle asset piece, but it takes time. Time is, like we talked about, before this call, time is the only resource we can't get more of. Everything else, we can try to find a way to do it. But it takes time to find somebody. It takes time to onboard them. It takes time to train them. You've got to integrate them to your culture. You've got to monitor them for a period of time. All of that you could have avoided. And some of those costs are non-tangibles. They're not going to show up on your P&L. I mean, you could dig around and try to figure out what they apply to. But all that time is lost opportunity that you could have avoided had you just taken care of your people or got the right people, the right things at the right time.
Exactly. Sometimes you can't metric those things. You can't put it in a metric, right?
Not everything is on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. Wow. I like to look at compliance. Because I've had some experience in the compliance world, is an assurance policy, more of a peace of mind policy, and a proactive loss prevention measure that sometimes you may not be able to totally quantify it, but man, you can pay for it if you don't, if you don't have it.
I mean, how many people that are watching this or listening to this I mean, think back about your businesses, whether ones you were working for or ones you're running. And there was that one guy, that one guy that was the heart and soul of the team, the one that drove things forward. And for whatever reason, he wasn't with the team anymore. Maybe it was a retirement and he ended on a positive note. However that person left, what kind of vacuum did they leave when they were gone? What kind of institutional knowledge did you learn or did you lose? What best practices walked out the door with them? And it's something that we should think about as we evaluate our teams, as we build them, as we look at employees and have to make hard decisions. And as employees, when we're looking at going to another company, the financial isn't always better. A couple dollars here doesn't always mean a better quality of life.
That's exactly right. I've been there too. So no doubt. But this is a topic that I think you and I could go for an hour on. There's so much great content, great tips today. Nick, what would you say are the best ways for people to get in touch with you?
Best way, obviously the website, fleetdrive360.com. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, at the name Fleet Drive 360. My name, it's under NIC Nick Salas on LinkedIn. I'd love to talk to you directly. Shoot me a note, and let's just have a conversation. It doesn't have to be about trucking and it doesn't have to be about software. I love business for the sake of business. So I'd love an opportunity to connect with you and just talk about, what's important to you or what we need to think about. And then finally, our phone number, 470-598-1501. Just pick up and call us directly.
Awesome. Yeah, you and I have had some great conversations and I look forward to, many more in the future. But what would you say as some final words for our podcast audience today?
I'm going to lean back a little bit on what we talked about last time and talk a little bit, just a tiny piece about the business and our software. But, as challenges multiply, things get missed. It's really easy to say, I can do it. I can handle it. I'm going to remember that. I'll do it tomorrow. But without a good system in place, that things dropped and things can fall in the cracks. And with compliance, missed items, like we talked about at the beginning, they can mean significant fines, lost revenue, out of service orders. It can close down your business depending on the fines or the issues that come up with. So whatever you do, have a system for managing your business, have a system for managing your compliance, and specific to this conversation, have a system for hiring and onboarding your drivers. And that's where the Fleet Drive program comes in. Our platform, it alerts you of problems before they happen. It streamlines your hiring process. It gives you digital record keeping system, and it'll scale with your business. You can hire and onboard your drivers. You can digitally maintain all of your compliance documents, build your DQ files, monitor your drug testing program, as well as run your drug testing program directly. And you can do it all at one place at a significant cost and time savings. We talked about this, before on another podcast. We can cut 30 to 50% of both the time and the cost that you spend hiring and onboarding drivers or maintaining your compliance. And I think that's like, what would you do with another 4 hours in your week?
I would be building revenue and sales and treating my employees amazingly. So
maybe taking a nap
or resting or vacation. Yeah, exactly. Balance.
You remember those? Right. That's my biggest advice to business owners. Bring back nap time.
Yeah, seriously. Or, those short vacations, those 4-day weeks. Absolutely. Gosh, this is great content, very necessary conversation, Nick, and we really thank you for it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And if I can be of any help, guys, please reach out to me directly.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Trucking Tower podcast. We thank you for listening or watching today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.